In a stunning display of hypocrisy, the Covington Catholic kids are now being blamed for the verbal attacks and other threats that are being heaped upon them simply because they wore Make America Great Again hats. Venezuela, the beacon of socialism in the Western Hemisphere, is now on a downward spiral that is tragic, to say the least. And it's exactly the same policies that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and others want to impose on America. All of that, plus forget toxic masculinity, the real problem is toxic tech-unlinity.
And God bless the United States of America.
All right, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. Please subscribe. Just please hit the subscribe button. Check us out on social media. And I invite your comments, and just please tell your friends about it. We're growing. This is only our third week, and I've really enjoyed the response. So let's dive into the show. The first thing I want to talk about is the interview that happened this week with Savannah Guthrie over at NBC News. She sat down with Nick Sandmann, who's at the heart of the Covington Catholic kids' viral video where he faced off against Vietnam exaggerator Nathan Phillips. Here's a clip. Take a look at this.
As for those red Make America Great Again hats that some students were wearing, Sandmann says he bought his that day from a street vendor in Washington.
Do you think if you weren't wearing that hat, this might not have happened, or it might have been different?
So Guthrie speculates that perhaps the issue started and the root cause was because Sandmann and others in his class wore Make America Great Again hats. But it doesn't stop with Guthrie. Here's a report. Here was an interview on MSNBC with Craig Melvin, and here's what he had to say. This hat has become symbolic of a lot of things in this country, Mr. Melvin told Princeton professor Eddie Glaude. To some, it is merely a hat that dons a political slogan that the president popularized. For others, it has become an invitation for confrontation. Some people refer to the hat as a modern-day version of the Confederate flag. Do we think that the same reaction would have been had on both sides if he weren't wearing that hat? So that gives you something to think about, but his guest had this as his reply. There was a sense in which the hat announced a certain set of political commitments, the professor said. Alyssa Milano, the actress, I think described the hat as a modern-day white sheet. I think that's how she described it. The hat is in some ways, for many of us, a kind of racial animus. Okay, so for one thing, this professor is quoting Alyssa Milano, so you know right there that the intellectual level of this interview is probably at a 0 on a scale of 1 to 10. But again, they're implying that somehow these kids brought this upon themselves simply because they're wearing a hat that supports President Trump and his slogan throughout the campaign and the one he's used throughout his tenure as president. Here's another example. This is in Missouri. A man wearing a President Trump campaign shirt from 2016 was asked to leave his gym because the shirt was deemed racist. Here, take a look at this clip from the local Channel 5 News, KSDK.
He was working out wearing this shirt. It reads, 2016 Trump for president. But he says the gym owner told him there was a lot more between the lines.
It's offensive to her and others. I'm like, okay. And she's like, yeah, it represents racism, and it's racist to have that shirt.
So what we're seeing here is a very, very disturbing pattern, and I think we're going to be seeing more of it. We've already seen it with people like Ben Shapiro and others going to speak on college campuses, where it's almost flat out stated that the violence or vandalism that occurs or had occurred in the past is because they were there. They spoke. Now we have kids out here wearing hats, and they're being accused of bringing it upon themselves, which those on the left and everyone in the country, we are supposed to think a different way. Aren't we taught that a woman could go out on a Saturday night to have fun with her friends, wear anything, lipstick, clothes, and it's not an invitation for antagonism, assault, you name it. She can wear whatever she wants. That is not an open invitation to harass her. That's what we're taught. And yet the exact same thing is happening here, where they're saying, well, it's because you wore a Make America Great Again hat. We have to have one set of standards that applies to everybody. And it doesn't matter what you wear or the look that you have on your face. It is not an invitation for violence or harassment or racial slurs or anything like that. You can say what you want to say, and you should, in this country, be expected to live a peaceful life without being harassed by these people. But this is a very bad trend that we're seeing, where people can be attacked simply by what they're wearing. And you got to keep your eye on this. And if there are indications where you see this happening, point it out, post it on social media, let people know that people are being attacked simply because of what they believe. We're seeing that, and what they're wearing. It is just a really, really bad sign. All right, now I want to touch on Venezuela, because this is, especially in contrast with some of the freshmen that have been elected to Congress this term, it is just an example of socialism gone wrong and socialism failing like it always fails. I mean, we had a country here, Venezuela, that started a democratic regime or term back in 1959 when military rule ended. And since 1959, it began to prosper, grow, and become an example for many countries in the Western Hemisphere and around the world. Then in 1999, Hugo Chavez came into power, and guess what he promised? Socialist ideas, universal health care, redistribution of wealth, and the whole country went downhill ever since then. His successor, Maduro, he's even worse, and the country is now in turmoil. I want to put up a chart that from the Heritage Foundation that ranks the basic freedom index, economic index for various countries around the world. And here's part one of Heritage's report. Venezuela's economic freedom score is 25.9, making its economy the 179th freest in the 2019 index. Its overall score has increased by 0.7 point, with a small improvement in labor freedom outpacing a decline in business freedom. Here's a key point. Venezuela is ranked last among 32 countries in the Americas region, and its overall score is well below the regional and world averages. So there's socialism for you. There's Venezuela. This is what happens when you take freedoms away. Heritage went on, and here's what they added in their report. Venezuela's once modern economy has collapsed into sort of a 21st century feudalism. Monetization of large public deficits, coupled with mismanagement of state-dominated oil industry, has led to hyperinflation and shortages of foreign currency, basic goods, and industrial inputs. An economic plan launched in August 2018 included the removal of 5 zeros from the currency, a massive devaluation, and another large increase in the minimum wage amid persistent ad hoc policy interventionism, heavy state control of the economy, and blatant disregard for the rule of law. So this is the state of what's going on in Venezuela. It is a country where people are starving, where the economy has completely failed. And now we have a situation that is dominating the world stage because the president had a bogus election in 2018. And he didn't even let some of his political opponents run. And one of those now is claiming to be the interim president. And many, many countries, not just the United States, as some media sources jumped on, like President Trump was jumping the gun. But here's a list of all the countries that have basically come out in support of the new interim president, Guaido, as opposed to the ruling dictator in Venezuela. Take a look at this chart. So here's what's interesting. Look at some of the countries that are opposed to the United States. You have Mexico, you have Iran, you have Russia, and this chart has China as neutral, but most media people are now putting China as supporting the current regime. This just shows you how they do not want Venezuela to become a democracy. They want to hold on to these bastions of socialism in the West because that's all they have. That's their fingers in this hemisphere. And Venezuela's got to turn. People are starving. And it just shows you when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez comes out and says, I want universal health care, guess what? They put that in Venezuela. I want redistribution of wealth. Guess what? They put that in Venezuela too. And now look at the state of the country. It is just very, very sad what's going on. And we have to get through to those on the left and show them once and for all, here's an example of socialism, and it completely failed. It is not the way to go. When you take away freedoms from people, all you're left with is corruption and devastation. Now, it's Friday. On a lighter note, I want to talk about something that is sweeping the country. Gillette addressed toxic masculinity last week in an ad, but that's not the issue. That's not the problem. The real problem out there is what's known as toxic tech-unlinity. Now, I bring it up because there are some that say I suffer from it, and there are some symptoms, some behaviors that manifest itself when people do suffer from this. They say there's arrogance, there's a condescending tone and attitude, there's impatience. That's definitely not me. And I wanted to show you, the viewers, so you could judge for yourself. I just happened to be rehearsing the show the other day, and I have this video evidence that shows I definitely do not suffer from toxic tech-unlinity. Check it out. So there you have it. In Venezuela, we have a situation that is exactly the type of policies that AOC and others in the Democrat Party... Hello? Hey, Mom. What's going on? No, you're not bothering me. I'm just rehearsing for my show. Okay, all right, hold on just a second. Well, first of all, you didn't download anything from the Google. You might have used Google to download something, but it's probably not an app either. You probably downloaded a DMG file, which will then have to mount onto your hard drive, and we can open that and then unpack the installer. And when you run the installer, that'll download the app. It'll create an icon, which you can then slide into your applications folder. And depending on your privacy settings, since you did download from the internet, you should be able to then open the app and use it. It's pretty straightforward, pretty easy. So what's the problem? Okay, well, all right, so what's the file name? We can just search for it. All right, well, hold on. All right, let's just start again. We'll just click on the link. Just click on the link. A window's going to pop up. We're going to select desktop, so it'll go right to your desktop. You won't have to search for it. Okay, so the window's up. All right, select desktop. Okay, and then hit save. All right, so look at your desktop. What's there? What do you mean nothing? Okay, so when you open the window, did you change it to desktop? What'd you do? Oh my gosh. All right, let's just start from the beginning. All right, so see there? I mean, I think I dealt with the situation very calmly, very rationally, just explained to her what's going on, and yet I get blamed for this syndrome, this disorder, which I completely disagree. Now, those who do suffer from it, we should confront them, and we should put a stop to this, because this is much, much greater problem than toxic masculinity. Those who think they are tech and know it all and go around acting super smart, we need to watch out for them. Just be on the lookout. This is a public service announcement from me. So that's it for today's show. Please subscribe. Please tell your friends, and enjoy the weekend. I'm Bobby Everly. This is a 13-minute news hour.